Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us your sources, and we're here to pull out the key insights, basically a shortcut to getting up to speed.
And today we are diving into some excerpts from Donald Ray Pollock's Knockemstiff. Now, it's fiction, absolutely, but these pieces give such a raw, unfiltered glimpse into, well, a very specific world.
Right. So our mission today isn't just plot summary. We really want to dig into the feeling, the atmosphere, and those themes that keep popping up again and again. Think of it like getting the essence of Knockemstiff fast.
Without getting totally swamped by all the details. And that world, it really centers on Knockemstiff, Ohio. That location just runs through all these stories.
Yeah, you really feel it's this contained place, isolated almost.
Definitely. A very self-contained kind of world.
Okay, so let's unpack this. One of the first things, and it hits you right away, is this constant theme of poverty,
Mm.
of just lack. It feels foundational.
Oh, absolutely. You see it right from the start, that scene with the mother, lamenting they can't pay the electric bill. But then she mentions owning multiple cars.
Right, that contrast.
Exactly. Living on soup beans and fried bread. But there are these cars.
Hmm.
It kind of points to this weird disconnect, maybe. Or just the limits of what's actually available to them. It feels deeper than just not having cash.
And it's not just that one scene, is it? It kind of echoes. You see the narrator at the dynamite hole trading arrowheads just for potted meat.
Yeah, basic stuff.
Yeah.
And Maud Speakman working at the store for low wages. It's like this hum underneath everything.
Characters just described as broke and unwanted, almost like it's just the way things are there.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, is it just accepted resignation? Or are there bigger community things going on that keep people stuck in that hardship? It's presented very matter-of-factly.
Okay, so shifting a little bit. Another thing that's just impossible to miss is the alcohol and drug use. It feels like it's everywhere, coloring almost every interaction.
That's for sure. And it's across the board. Different substances, different people. You've got Vernon drinking whiskey in the car with his kids right there, using the ashtray.
Yeah, and the mother's reaction.
Total exasperation. It kind of suggests this might be, well, depressingly normal, even with children present. Ruins the whole evening.
And then there's Cowboy Roy giving Daniel a lift, popping pills he calls truckers' lifesavers speed, basically while he's driving.
Right. And calling them lifesavers, these pills for staying awake, keeping going. It gives you this raw look into maybe the pressures, the expectations in that world,
Yeah.
pushing limits just to cope, maybe, or escape.
It definitely escalates with Frankie and Bobby. I mean, the speed use is blatant. Their behavior gets really erratic. They're even stealing pills. The writing doesn't pull any punches about the effects.
No, it doesn't. The paranoia, Frankie obsessed with movie stars, chewing holes in their tongues. It really shows how destructive that addiction is. A really disturbing picture of its grip.
And it's not just speed. There's Clarence drinking, having fucked up dreams, Jimmy huffing Bactine of all things.
Yeah, for the disorienting effects.
Yeah.
And Luther using steroids tied into these intense hopes he has for his son Sammy's bodybuilding. It covers a whole spectrum.
It makes you think about why. Is it always escape? Like with Mary giving Albert wine, that almost seems like a way to manage a tough situation, right?
It does raise that question. Are these substances just about checking out? Or are they sometimes like a really twisted coping mechanism within this very challenging place?
And unfortunately, relying on this stuff, it doesn't seem to stop the violence. In fact, maybe it fuels it. That's another huge theme here, like just this palpable violence and brutality.
Yeah, that's a really unsettling part of this world Pollock builds. Even what seems like a normal moment can turn nasty fast.
Yeah.
Like Vernon just casually threatening Bobby in the car.
Just like that.
A reminder that aggression is always kind of simmering right there.
Or that fight almost breaking out at the drive-in over somebody thinking they were insulted. It's like a hair trigger.
But it's not just arguments, is it?
What?
The narrator at the dynamite hole, what he sees, and then what he does, that's deeply disturbing. It suggests a world where brutality can just become normal. The lines get really blurry.
And it keeps cropping up. Little mentions, like that military kid attacked by snakes or the old guy cutting Daniel's hair with a butcher
A
knife.
butcher knife, yeah. Or Jimmy just casually mentioning violence from his past. These details build up.
And some are just graphic. Tex Colburn chipping the narrator's teeth out. That description is brutal.
It really sticks with you, that casual cruelty. And even smaller things, like Luther slapping little Ralph or blowing up at the Dairy Queen. They add to this feeling that violence could just happen anytime.
So you've got the poverty, the substance abuse, this undercurrent of violence. It feels like it must just wreck relationships. Which leads to another core thing, these broken families, these really difficult connections between people.
Oh, absolutely. Look at Vernon's family. The tension is so thick you could cut it. The mother wanting out, the strain between him, his wife, and his son. It feels like they're stuck together by circumstance, not much else.
And the narrator himself, right? His whole complicated thing with his old man feeling relieved to leave home, that says a lot about what home was like.
It really does. And it's striking how many fractured families you see. Truman and his sister's dynamic is unsettling. The narrator feeling abandoned when his family moves after his brother dies. Daniel leaving home over that doll incident and his dad's reaction. William's family.
Yeah, with the mother wanting to be scared. That's a weird one.
It really is. It all adds up to this sense of instability in those basic fundamental bonds.
And you see the ripple effects, don't you? Todd getting exploited after leaving home. Clarence being so crude and dismissive about his own family. Dwayne and Randy's difficult family stuff that's hinted at.
It's like they're all carrying that weight from broken relationships early on.
Yeah.
Even maybe smaller workplace things like Adele noticing the new manager is impersonal and the foreman's just cynical about it. Maybe that suggests a breakdown in connection even in the wider community.
Could be. And then Howard and Peg's marriage, his memory loss, her frustration, another angle on strained connections.
And the narrator, again, his relationship with his parents, his brother, you get hints of past theft, even racial prejudice. These problems run deep within families. And Jill and Bernie, their whole world consumed by their son Jerry's condition. How that immense shared struggle just puts more strain on them.
So with all this hardship, these fractured lives, the place itself, Knockemstiff, becomes incredibly vivid, almost like another character, you said earlier.
Yeah, I think so. The way it's described, a hellhole, a holler,
Mm,
it sets a tone right away. There's no romance about it.
none at all. And the specific spots mentioned, the drive-in, Haps Bar, Dynamite Hole, train lane, they feel like grim landmarks in this landscape. Each one probably has its own history, its own stories.
Exactly. And it's the details that make it so real, isn't it?
Yeah.
The gravel lots, dusty trees, sagging fences, those rundown garages, cramped trailers. It paints such a clear picture of decay, of neglect.
You almost feel it. The sounds to crickets, distant arguments drifting through the night, the implied smell of decay. It creates this heavy, oppressive kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, like the place itself is weighing down on everyone.
But even with all that harshness, Pollock does give us these little windows into what the characters are thinking, feeling inside, their internal lives.
And those moments are crucial, I think. They add this layer of humanity. You see the mother's exhaustion, her longing for something, anything different.
Or the narrator at the dynamite hole, wrestling with himself, trying to justify what he did. It shows it's not simple. There's this inner conflict.
And Daniel wanting long hair seems small. But his journey away, the disillusionment, it points to this deeper need for identity, for belonging, that he just wasn't finding there.
Even Frankie and Bobby, totally spun out on speed. You get glimpses of vulnerability maybe, or just a twisted desire for connection underneath it all.
Right. And the narrator being drawn to the woman taking photos, Daniel wanting acceptance, the narrator trying, however imperfectly, to care for his disabled uncle while battling his own addiction.
It shows that basic human need for connection, for meaning, it's still there, even in this really tough world.
Definitely. Sharon just wanting normalcy. Howard struggling with his memory fragments. The narrator trying for sobriety, but still caught up in old prejudices. Bernie's raw grief and anger about his son. These glimpses remind you they're individuals, carrying their own stuff, navigating their own inner worlds.
Now, the title itself, Knockemstiff, it's pretty memorable. And there's that little anecdote in the text about where the name might have come from.
Yeah, the story about the two women fighting outside the church, one yelling she'll knock the other one stiff. It's so ordinary, almost mundane for such a tough-sounding name.
It almost makes it feel more real in a way. Like, yeah, intense stuff happens even in seemingly forgettable places.
Exactly. And speaking of real places, it's worth remembering the author's note at the end of these excerpts. Pollock is clear. Knockemstiff is real. It inspired him. But the characters, they're fiction.
That's an important distinction.
Very. He mentioned the people he actually knew growing up there were generally good, helpful folks, which creates this interesting contrast with the often dark, difficult things in the stories.
So the fiction captures an atmosphere, maybe some struggles, but it's not meant as a direct portrait of everyone who lived there.
Precisely. It adds that important layer of context.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into these Knockemstiff excerpts, what are the main takeaways for you? What really sticks?
I think it's the way everything feels connected. The poverty-limiting choices, The substance abuse is this constant presence, maybe escape, maybe coping the threat of violence always simmering, and how all that just seems to break down relationships, families. They all weave together into this really potent, often quite bleak picture of this specific isolated world.
Yeah, it's definitely unflinching, a stark look into this fictional place and the struggles of the people in it. Not always easy reading, but it leaves an impression.
For sure, and it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do all these separate stories, these characters, add up to a bigger picture of this community? What are the forces really shaping this little world? And maybe what broader things about human experience can we see reflected here, even in a place that feels so particular, so, well, Knockemstiff?
Something to definitely chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.